Welcome back, everyone, to our special live coverage of the 52nd Annual Legislative Conference for the Congressional Black Caucus. I hope you all enjoyed that special edition of the Black Lunch Break. Coming back now, we are joined with our special guest, Chelsea Higgs. She is the Executive Director of Marijuana Justice. We also have Tyson Jackson, who is also my husband, full disclosure, one of the co-founders of Black with No Chaser, and who has also done some great work also within like the cannabis justice field, if you will. So we're here to have a serious conversation about what equity looks like for Black business owners in the cannabis industry. Like, as we know, plenty of Black people have been thrown behind bars, sometimes for years, even just like for possessing marijuana. Right. And so now, like this, now that things have been more or less legalized, you know, we need a piece of that pie. So I'd love if you could start off telling me a little bit more about your work, and then also the Cannabis Justice Coalition.
Perfect. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. Again, my name is Chelsea Higgs, and I'm the Executive Director and co-founder of Marijuana Justice. We are based and located in Virginia, which happens to be the first state in the U.S. South to legalize simple possession, home grow, as well as seal the records of over 64,000 people with past marijuana offenses. So we're excited to still really be here and working even outside of Virginia. But one thing about Virginia that really goes towards your question about equity in Black businesses is that in Virginia, we have yet to have adult use sales. And a lot of people ask me why. Why have we not started selling at dispensaries? Why are we only have medical right now? And I will tell people very directly is that the way that they are proposing adult use sales would leave Black and brown business owners completely behind. And that is the reason why we can't just legalize it. We have to legalize it right. And so our Legalize It Right campaign is to make sure that we get equity for Black and brown business folks, that we have people that have been justice impacted, part of the industry, right? They're the ones that made it cool. They're the ones that made it commercial. They have the most experience in the industry. And we call those folks our legacy operators. So our legacy operators, making sure they have an opportunity, making sure these business owners have upfront capital to start their businesses. We know that that is a major problem with folks that really want to start this business, and less than, I believe, 1% of venture capitalism even goes to Black women specifically. So that upfront capital is so important. And then we also have to make sure that our Black and brown business owners have a leg up, literally start early. We should not have our small business owners starting to sell adult use marijuana at the same time as these large corporations. They've already been set up for medical. All they have to do is change over a cashier registration. And really that just opens up the floodgates to give them a major advantage. And we call that a limited and exclusive market. So we are against the limited exclusive market that would give big businesses this leg up. We want equity to get us started first. We want upfront capital. We want folks that have been impacted to be involved. And then we really need some common sense regulation that also doesn't push for a crackdown of the enforcement of those folks that are still doing what the government is doing to make money. And I just want to be very clear, everyone in this country right now that has a marijuana business is doing so illegally.
And Tyson, I want you to jump in here too with some of your experience in working around this issue as well.
Well, absolutely. A lot of my experience has come from the opportunity to even work with Chelsea with some of the work that she's doing, just thinking about it from a community standpoint, as we look at our businesses and how businesses are impacted, or even from an entrepreneur standpoint of us having an opportunity and the equity in that, we also have to start thinking about how does this impact in our communities? What is happening in our communities? And if now all this revenue and money is coming in from in the legal states where they are collecting taxes on this, where's this money going? And how is it impacting our communities? Are our communities getting better? Is this happening? And a lot of places, no, it's not. A lot of places, they are looking at any way that they possibly can of leaving us out of that conversation. And that not providing resources in our community. So I think that's a very important part too. And if our community doesn't start to demand that as this money comes in, that this money is used for this, or this money goes in these different ways, it's not going to happen. So we have to be ahead of this on so many different levels to make sure that equity happens.
And that's why we have opposed the proposals in Virginia that would not allow for that to happen, because we have to speak up and we have to really say no. You brought up a great point, Tyson, about the community interest and if the community is made better by legalization. So we take a look at California, that is ahead of us a bit, and we look at Black and brown communities in California, and what they are saying right now is that their legal weed is too expensive, the taxes are too high, and it's not their own people selling in their communities. Now, when you look at a great group to follow out in California, it's called Supernova Women. Okay. It's all Black and brown women, and they put out a report last year that said for every dollar spent for social equity applicants and entrepreneurs, there is another $1.50 return in that tax allegation for a local community. Wow. So there's actually a return on investment when you invest in these equity businesses, and that's why we had to have that upfront capital. We had to have things like they don't need brick and mortars, tax waivers, because giving them an opportunity actually raises the opportunity for the entire community.
That's right.
And I think, you know, the tax revenue piece of this is huge, because not just in Virginia, but even nationally, you know, we've heard so much about cutting social services like SNAP benefits, and, you know, these social equity programs, or social service programs, I guess I should say, that could really benefit from this extra tax money, you know, again, not just on the state level, but also nationally for our communities.
Yes. And thank you so much for bringing that up. Y'all are always on point with this platform. And I will just say, I actually spent 10 years as a clinical social worker prior to going to more of a political organizing stance. And you're right. The entire reason that marijuana justice is even in this conversation for cannabis legalization is because the drug market revenue that's coming in. And I'm not just saying cannabis revenue, because states like Colorado are now legalizing all sorts of substances that will bring in additional revenue. And so we have to start looking at where that revenue is going. So Virginia actually copied what Illinois proposed. And so 30% of any cannabis adult use revenue would go straight into an equity reinvestment fund. And that fund is for individuals and communities. I'm going to say that again, individuals and communities. Don't just write communities, make sure, and don't just write individuals. We need both to be able to be impacted.
That's right.
Because something else we work on is drug war reparations.
Right.
And so that can go both ways for individuals impacted as well as communities. And so important for us to look at that. So 30% of the revenue, whenever Virginia does legalize, if we keep it what's in place, 30% of the revenue will go back to the community. Now, we know that's not enough. We deserve 100% of that revenue, which is why other states going forward need to ask for more, because now we know better.
And if I can say too, what we also have to do is, even if our states pass these laws and we put them there, we have to stay on our states. Because as soon as the law is passed, doesn't mean that they're going to put it in, they're going to enforce it. They're going to put the measures in place to make sure this happens. They'll say it on it and they get you to vote on it. It sounds really good, but then nothing happens on the back end. So it's very important in our communities. If we're talking about any new revenue source that comes into our community, then we're making sure we're staying on that pulse. That's why it's important to look at who we're voting for. That's why it's important to hold our elected officials accountable. And if they're not doing what we need to do, we need to get them out of there and make sure that people who get who understand this are in place to do the things that need to happen. Because if we don't, we drop the ball.
It's true. It's Tyson. It's almost like you've been watching Virginia, because we passed the bill in 2021, and let me tell you, this is not a red issue, not a blue issue. This is green, right? And so both sides of the aisle have real problems with this, and it was both sides of the aisle that did a quick turn as soon as we passed it to go and give the benefits to corporations, and why we have had to keep in the halls of power to tell them this is not the way to do it. I would love to start a conversation right here about the federal government and what's going on. About 2 weeks ago, the health administration from the federal government and Biden's administration released a report about recommending rescheduling marijuana. So for folks that do not know, back in the 70s, a lot of folks have heard about the CSA, the Services Act, that actually created the schedule system and criminalized substances like marijuana. Marijuana is Schedule 1 right now. That means it is penalized the highest. That means there is no use for it medically or anything, and it's just strictly criminal. I will let people know that it is more prohibited than cocaine.
Yep.
So
and I just want to put it there because Black and brown people. I just want to put that in there.
We do. We have to remember that Nixon administration very much said that prohibition in this way in the 70s was strictly targeted towards Black people. He didn't use that word. Towards Black people, towards folks from Latin America, and for poor whites. But anyway, what's going on right now is that President Biden is getting pushed to take a look at this scheduling. A lot of people might remember from October 6th when he made that announcement last year about the federal pardon, right? And he also told his government, federal administration, to review the schedule. That was the most exciting part about this for us. Well, what we are watching is that the health administration, and then what we also expect is the DEA, probably by late November is the earliest, will come out with this recommendation for Schedule 3. I will tell you all right now, we do not need a reschedule. We need a complete deschedule. We need to remove it. Remove it. What Schedule 3 will do, it says that there is a medical benefit, a medical use for marijuana, since so many states have passed it medically. It will do nothing for our criminal justice pieces. It will do nothing for deportation. Marijuana is the number one reason for deportation after not having papers.
Wow.
Okay. Did you know people in the South, there are the most Black immigrants in the Southern region? Those folks are being highly impacted by prohibition. The largest number of trans people are also in the South.
Wow.
So what we are doing right now is we're watching the federal government take their moves. We are also working to connect with more organizers in the South specifically to figure out how we make sure our voices get heard. Because let's be true, there's no progress in the United States that's ever happened without Southerners at the front and forefront.
This is true.
Particularly for us, right? And it's because in the South is where it is felt the hardest and the most. And if we don't fix it for the South, we won't fix it for all. And so we're really looking forward to continue to talk about drug market revenue, legalization, and even reparations for Southerners in the South. So if people are listening to this, please hop on to follow us at THC Justice Now on all social media platforms. And you can follow us online on our website at marijuanajustice.org. So we have tons of resources on there, from resentencing to get our people out, to knowing your rights in Virginia, to the social equity pieces, what we should be fighting for in those places, about the legacy market. We've got HIV and health pieces on there as well. We've got some real resources. So I'm really inviting folks into this conversation because the federal government is going to be taking a look. We're going to have a recommendation from the DEA. If you're following us, we're going to push for a public comment, which is at this point supposed to be promised to us with this process. But we really want everyone to know that the reschedule announcement, many cannabis folks are going to come out like this is a win. This is not a win for reschedule. Absolutely not.
Chelsea, Tyson, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead. I just wanted to say thank you both so much for dropping these gems of knowledge, for amplifying, especially what's happening on the federal level. This is a conversation that is going to continue to keep going, and that we will continue to amplify here on Black with No Chaser and Black with No Chaser News. And last question, if people want to get involved, and they're in RV and they're in Richmond, how can they do so?
Well, you can definitely, like I said, go to our website, marijuanajustice.org. And if you're in Richmond specifically, we actually have started our reparations movement, so you can sign up there. And then follow us again at THC Justice Now on all social media. If you subscribe to the website, you'll get our newsletter that comes out every Friday, sometimes Monday, but it'll have all of this information on there. I'd also really put a big shout out to the Drug Policy Alliance that's working on the federal level and making sure that we do this right. So I look forward to hearing from anyone across this nation that has questions. We are really here for Black folks that are impacted and around proximity of drugs. That's what we're here for. So thank you so much for having this time to talk with you all and really just sharing our voices.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again for joining us. And for you guys listening out there and watching us across social media, sit tight because we have another great interview coming right up.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was a great conversation.